Throughout my life, I've gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of people, both throughout the videos I post online, helping people express themselves better, lower their anxiety, and improve their social skills, and through my personal life of helping kids learn chess, basically, giving chess lessons in person to kids. And throughout both those very close types of form of education and teaching, I've learned a lot of things, both about myself and other people, on how to cure anxiety, your social anxiety to be specific. And this actually comes to a point where it's so hard for some people to express themselves that it actually holds them back in life from being as happy as they would want to be. It holds them back from making connections with other people, from expressing themselves how they would like, and being the fun person that they would want to actually be, but get too stuck up in their head or nervous, or they simply can't do it. And all people have this to some degree, but some people have it to a degree in which it affects them so much that they can't get anything out. And the first thing is your fear of judgment. The fear of judgment that you experience from being able to express yourself and the opinions and reactions that other people may have is going to dictate how expressive and therefore how happy you are in your life. If you're able to be more expressive, and what I mean by that is your ability to communicate yourself honestly, authentically, without a fear of judgment or perceiving the outcome to be negative, that fear of judgment, that ability to express yourself is going to determine how happy you are in life. And if in a lot of cases, if you are feeling held back, or you can't say the things that you want to say, or things aren't going the way that you want them to, and you don't know how to communicate that to another person and have that person receive it, well, that is a form of expression. And even more so, if you even want to start a conversation with someone, or be fun in a conversation, or be able to be playful, or tell jokes, or be a fun, cool person, that is also coming from a place of not being able to show your authentic self. If you're a great people pleaser, this also comes into your social anxiety. And all this stuff and the people I've worked with, the kids that I've seen it in, and the kids I don't see it in, all come from a place of things that have happened to them in the past, from their past experiences, in childhood, at school, basically any type of social interaction they had now affects their social anxiety now, and even more so, attachment styles that they have to different people and their natural reactions they have to certain things. And so a big thing is someone with bipolar disorder who gets very heated in the moment and then turns off. Well, that is a form of a social interaction or a stress response that people have that are formed by the interactions that they have had previous in life. A very quick example of this is a very common social interaction that happens between parents and kids a lot of the times. And so a parent may come home from a day of work or some type of experience they've had, and they themselves are now dealing with some stress. And a lot of other people can relate to this. Long day at work, other things are just not going your way. You're going to feel some amount of stress in your life at times, and that is totally okay. I'm writing this upside down, so it's a bit hard. Stress. And that stress kind of accumulates inside of them, and we'll call that negative energy. Is that an N? That's just horrible, by the way, I'm sorry. So this negative energy that they have carrying with them right now is then inside of them, and then they come home from that day, and then you're there, maybe at home, and it's a mess at home too. And this just sends them over the top. There's dishes in the sink, it's all unwashed, the house is a mess, it needs to be clean, my kids haven't done anything, oh my God, I'm dealing with something right now. And all that stress that they have inside of them, that negative energy, that turmoil inside of them, they then unload it onto the people around them, closest to them. And this is something that happens a lot because for you to deal with that stress upon yourself and then more triggers happen, you're just I can't take this anymore, and that outburst comes. And that outburst is a feeling both in your mind, in your head, but it's also a feeling in your body too. And this outburst that is coming out is a overload of stress that you are feeling. And because it's just so much, you can't really control it, and you just kind of let that out onto the people around you. And it feels good. It feels good to get loud and maybe give a cuss and maybe say something. It just feels good to get that energy off, to let that steam go. And that's coming from all that you have stored up. Now, this process goes on for a long time. And by a long time, I don't just mean for a year or two, I mean for generations. And so this could be you, guy, girl, woman, man, and just little triggers in your life get you so stressed. Just little things in your life make you so over the top. And it also, it goes into a deeper thing, but we'll just talk about this for right now, is then when you're having that social interaction with your child is then receiving all this negative energy, all that stress. And what happens is that this then affects them in their mind, their RAS, and in their body, NS, which is their nervous system. And so both in their body and in their mind, they are being affected by this negative energy. And this negative energy is being expressed from you or from whoever it is, not from you, but like from whoever in this example would be, right? You can be either of these people, is being expressed from this person onto this person. And so the feelings that this person has then in their mind and their body are being transmuted through here. And this exchange here, E, which isn't exchange, but it's expression. So this expression that is being displayed from this type of energy onto this person, well, what is happening? It's angry, it's mad, it's frustrated. It's what is things it's not? It's not compassionate, it's not empathetic, it's not slow. And all these things are being communicated by the subcommunications of this person. And what are the subcommunications? Well, there's only 4, and these are pretty easy. And so it's going to be your eye contact, it's going to be your body language, it's going to be your tonality, and it's going to be your facial expressions. And all these 4 things is the only 4 ways that humans communicate with each other. And it basically is the only way. It's 93%. Holy shit. It's 93% of the form of communications that humans use. The other 7% is the words. So my actual noises of sound that then communicates into words that I'm using. But everything else is just this stuff. It's me looking at you. It's the way that my body is postured. It's my eye contact. It's the way that my voice is being projected, the resonance, the pace, all that stuff. And then when you're in this negative energy state, this stress state, well, what are these things? Well, they're not relaxed. They're not compassionate. They're angry, stressed, and frustrated. And your eye contact may be a bit aggressive. Like there's this aggressive eye contact, and then there's warm eye contact. And so just the tiniest difference in expression is how you're transmitting this energy. And then the body language too is then going to be open, or the body language in this is going to be, angry. It's going to be stiff and rigid. It's going to be kind of uncontrollable. The tonality is a big one. It's going to be loud and yelling and angry. And the facial expressions, mean and angry. All these things. Basically, what is not happening is compassion. But it's very hard to give compassion in a state of stress. It's impossible to give compassion in a state of stress. And so this is what that other person sees. They only see your eye contact, body language, tonality. They only feel this, and then they also feel the words happening too. Oh my God, what the fuck? So I'm trying to draw a 7. Is that backwards? They only see those, and the other 7% is the words that are happening. And the words are big too, don't get me wrong. The words are giant. However, the words are not going to be perceived the way that they are perceived if this isn't there. This is just the base form of communication, and the words are like the icing on top. And so the words being communicated that are actually damaging are things like comparisons, insults, put downs. And these things that are, when it's happening from a parent to a child, a guardian to a child, are big because that kid is looking at you as their, caregiver the only person in the world that they can rely on. And when you give this negative energy, you're not giving them that compassion, you're not giving love. They think to themselves, oh, in this moment, I don't get love, I don't receive love. And depending on how bad this negative energy is, it's like, I don't deserve love. And then they start having these mindsets in themselves, and this RAS is your selective focus. And if what you're being stimulated in life with is what you're being received in life is a lot of this negative energy, a lot of, comparisons, put downs, insults, remarks, things that make you feel ashamed of yourself. Well, that is what your brain is going to focus on. It's going to focus on the negative stuff. It's going to focus on, what could go wrong? What is wrong with me? Maybe I am a burden. Maybe this is not right for me. I can't be like this. I'm not good enough for this. And that's what your mind is going to focus on. And that's what that RAS is. It's a reticular activation system of the brain. And this is the part that's so primordial to you. And so your brain has developed front to back throughout the many years that you've evolved. And you can say that evolution doesn't exist and God made humans, but maybe God made evolution too, right? And so the smartest part of your brain is the most outer layer and very close to the tippity top here in the front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. And this is where things like compassion, empathy, social cues, being able to connect and bond are active. So this part is active. Those things you're going to be able to do, to express. And when you express things like connecting, bonding, loving, understanding, empathy, compassion, the expressions of communications that you use are different. Their voice is gentler. It's more relaxed. The words that you use are more intelligent, unfortunately, to use such a crude word, but like they're more compassionate, and that compassion is intelligence, right? But if your initial response to any type of trigger or any type of emotion is this negative stress response, and we can go into why that is, well, you're not going to be able to display the activation of the prefrontal cortex, the smart part of your brain. And instead, what's going to happen is this amygdala response is going to happen, this fight or flight, this limbic system response. In this part of your brain, this limbic system, this amygdala response is all about fear. It's all about, again, the negative selective focus of danger and pain. And this, again, is the primordial, the caveman, cavewoman response of, oh, danger, run or fight. And so when this does happen, inside of your body, you get this flight or fight response. And this is what's happening in your nervous system. And so your autonomic nervous system has two components, I think three, but two major components we'll talk about here, which is your sympathetic and your parasympathetic set of nerves. And so when you are in this flight, fight, negative energy, stress mode, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. Sympathetic nervous system is activated. Sympathetic nervous system, negative stress. Parasympathetic, positivity. And parasympathetic is when you're in your rest and digest, when you're relaxed, calm. See how those things are now in your expressions? And so you're in your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, your calm state, when you are calm in your expression. And so you simply cannot be in a calm, compassionate state when you are not giving these expressions. So the physiology that you produce affects the mind, and the mind affects the physiology that you produce. And these two work in tandem together, And if you change one, you begin to change the other. And if you change one, you begin to change the other. And these happen in a positive spiral. But it also happens in the other way too. And so a negative thought will react in a negative physical change in your body. And that physical change in your body will then generate more of the stress, and the cycle continues. And so it's very hard to, when you're experiencing just a little bit, it kind of immediately spirals into like a shutdown mode. That your nervous system is activating. And when that happens, a whole bunch of other shit does happen too. Your gut gets all fucked up, inflamed. Muscles begin to tense up. These things are happening in your body when you're experiencing that negative stress, that negative energy, the sympathetic nervous system response. You're getting hormones of stress too. Cortisol, adrenaline are going through your body. And even after the event is done, say this interaction lasted 10 minutes, parent came in, or someone came in, your boss came in, you're having a bad day, or this interaction happened, and that stress event happened, and you're like, okay, 10 minutes, it was gone. My body felt like a little bit nervous. But what happens is that the hormones of stress, cortisol, adrenaline, still are in you. I think more cortisol, not adrenaline, are still in you up to 3 hours after the fact that the event happened. And so 3 hours after it, you're still having those hormones of stress, cortisol in your body. And that is making you feel this. And because you're feeling this, you're in this. And because you are in this mode, you feel that. And it kind of continues. And so that little event happens, and then it may affect your entire day or your week because that happened. And that gets you just in this base state of stress and negative energy. And this also can happen when emotion is brought up. And so there's another thing called emotional vulnerability when you're talking about deep emotions that trigger you. Now, how can talking about emotions, and okay, so there can be a lot more happening in this. There can be physical hitting. There can be a lot of other shit too. So this is just a very crude example of like some surface level things. Now, if you ever go to try to talk to someone about an emotional subject, maybe the way that they made you feel, or maybe the way that they hurt you, this can also trigger inside of them a negative response, hostile energy. Why is this? It's because when the words are then being exchanged years ago from here to here, from parent to child, guardian to kid, some of the words being exchanged were insults, comparisons, and shaming of that other person, neglect, not, maybe giving approval, or just some type of odd, interesting energy. And so what this person may see and feel inside of themselves, if they themselves do not have outlets to express themselves, so if they can't go back to their own parent and be like, hey, what you said really hurt me, or they have no brothers or sisters or other family members, grandmothers or friends or acquaintances or anybody else that they can give that stress out, what happens is that negative energy stays inside of them. And they also don't have first two things. They don't first have the concept of then talking about more emotional subjects. And secondly, they have the stimulus response pattern of, if I am to talk about emotions back to my parents. So imagine now you go to your parent and you're like, hey, those things that you said really fucking hurt me. And your parent gets like, or your partner gets like, well, they just can't hear you, and they get defensive and be like, well, and they say whatever they say back. And they're just not understanding that this baseline of, hey, I'm hurt and I don't feel good from the words you said. Now, they are having their own pattern, that has happened too. This exact process has happened to this person because there was someone here, and then there was someone here, and then there was someone there. And so this just kind of goes down. And so when you respond, and it's such an innate thing, like it is such an innate thing, because this doesn't happen one time, this pattern response or this interaction. This is a social interaction. This social interaction is, of course, going to affect your social anxiety. And so this interaction happens hundreds of times over the course of your life, thousands of times over the course of your life. Maybe not as big, maybe bigger, smaller too. It can just be like a look. When you were just like, I don't know, you came downstairs one day, you came out of your room one day, your mom or dad or brother or sister or grandparent or anybody in your house, your friend, maybe a teacher, literally anybody, a boss, then gave you like this negative energy. They kind of give you like a mean look, a nasty look, and you kind of just suppressed. And what happened in that very small micro interaction is that your expression, and we would call this your authentic expression, was then met with negative energy. And because you believe that something bad would happen if you continued, and you didn't want to upset that person, you then would suppress yourself. And then that pattern starts to build of you just not expressing yourself as a baseline, finding it hard to, always assuming something negative will happen if you do, overthinking and getting stuck in your head if you want to do something like that. Okay. So that's happening, and that's why it's happening. And then you bring maybe like that energy to your partner. Hey, you upset me. Hey, something bad happened. And they respond with that defensiveness, and they just can't meet you with compassion, empathy, and warm and relaxedness in them. Why are they getting so hostile? It's because when those things were brought up, mistakes that they made, things that they didn't do well, those were brought up in an environment and in an energy space, as fucking spiritual as that sounds, but like in a sub-communication state in which it was very negative and it was very like stressed and very shaming. And so, yes, my mistakes were only talking about or brought up to me or rubbed into my face when I was doing something wrong and when someone was getting angry about me. And never were those conversations brought up in a nice and healthy way. And so, of course, because I've only experienced them in stress, I've only seen other people, like, and you watch this, like this person watches this person interact with their partner and those other people. And you're just an accumulation of what you have observed. You're an accumulation of your thoughts about yourself, other people in the world. And so if you want to change something about yourself, you have to change one of those three beliefs. Usually all three of them somewhere. And so this person just sees the interactions this person has with other people and what they experience with themselves. And so first, they do not get certain concepts of certain things. This person has never said, hey, I feel hurt. Can you explain to me or about certain things, right? Again, this all varies to a degree about very specific subjective things, depending on that person's and everybody's life. Very subjective this topic is, but these are very general principles. So this person goes to this person and says, hey, like you made me feel this way. It hurts me. Can we talk about this? This person gets defensive because they believe that this person is not coming to them and being like, hey, I believe you hurt me. They believe that this person's coming to them and be like, you're a bad person. You're not a good person. Why? Because this same interaction has happened to them where this person then put a lot of negative energy, shaming, comparisons, insults onto this person. And this person thought, I am not a good person. And so this person grew up and became this person. And so you have this base RAS mindset of, I am not a good person. And so when anyone kind of comes to you and says, you made this, can you change this? Can you do this instead? You don't take it as like something like in which you can work together. You take it as the most personal insult in the world because you don't want to be a bad person. And so when they come to you, it affects your ego. It's like, no, but I'm not a bad person. But this person is saying, I don't think you're a bad person. I'm just saying what has happened and how you made me feel. Yeah, but I'm the one who made you feel that way. So you are talking about me. It's like, no, just the thing that you did in that moment. And then it just becomes such a personal, thing. It's like you genuinely believe I'm hurting you, in which that person, it just doesn't get through to them, right? And so they tend to respond with that defensiveness, that negative energy back, and that conversation never gets to be established. And then there's no concept of how that conversation could go. Instead, it should be, oh, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. No, is there anything I can do to help you not feel this way? Is there anything I can do going forward? And immediately, not taking it as an insult, but completely moving yourself onto their team and looking at the problem together. Over here, like in this dynamic creates the interpretation, the base RAS, base mindset of I am a problem. And so when anyone brings up a problem, they're like, oh, they're referring to me, because that's just where your selective focus goes. Oh, they're referring to me, not some action or not something that we can be fixed. It's literally me that is the problem. Little Taylor Swift song right there. And so I see this in, and this happens as you grow up. And so some of the older people that I work with in their 30s, mid 20s, late 20s, like they have this pattern where it's very deep and they're like, oh, this is just who I am. And then some kids I teach in my chess lessons too, they have it also, and you can start seeing it to develop. And you can see when they naturally flare up, or and you can see very adamantly on their body language, on how they express themselves, what they're feeling. If they're feeling sad, if they're feeling a bit down, if they're feeling nervous or shy, you can feel it, right? And it's hard to navigate that, especially from myself, who's gone through an experience like that before. And a lot of the clients I've worked with, basically all of them, have gone through some similar type of experience in which it's very hard for them to emotionally put themselves out there, because in the past they were usually met with some type of negative energy, not compassion, not understanding, not empathy. And if you don't have someone that you can learn how to do this with, just like any other skill, any other thing in life, it's a skill. My ability to pick up this water bottle is a skill. It's not an insane one, but it is a skill. A baby can't do it. They don't have enough reps. The same way you can't come to a conversation of stress with empathy and compassion. You haven't had enough reps. Some people don't even have the concept that you can. And so that's the difference of changing it. And now someone, again, with bipolar disorder, someone who reacts like very insanely to something and then cools off. Well, that is when a stress event happens. Say someone insults them, say someone says something mean to them, just a little tiny thing, and they just go completely ballistic, like a Karen or something. Just like the smallest thing happens, right? Well, they have so much negative energy built up inside of them. It's like that parent coming home from work. It's like that your partner coming home from a stressful day. They have so much negative energy built inside of them that any type of negative trigger, immediately sends them over the edge. Any type of emotional engagement immediately sends them over the edge into a state of like, this is too much for me. I have this negative energy inside of me. I now need to unload it out. And that can come in a certain intensity. And when that kind of dies off, they go back to a more calm state. And if you can't control that initial thing by first being aware of why it's happening and how it's happening, I'm just going to see if my phone's still recording. If you can't be aware of it, of why it's happening and where it's coming from, then you're not going to be able to even have the steps or understanding of how to fix it further on. And I see in some of my students that I teach personally in chess, so I can actually see them. So some students who have, like, they can't focus on the game of chess as much as they should. And these people come from certain types of families I see. So some kids have a very easy time expressing themselves. They come from certain types of families. Some kids are very not expressive. They come from certain types of families. And they have certain types of social interactions with those families. And I'm not with them all the time, but it's just little things that you can pick up on. And you begin to notice it's like people who are open, they can have deep emotional conversations, breed those types of kids who can have that more stability, emotional stability. And there's a lot of kids now just with like that I teach who just have the biggest short attention span ever. It's just like they're bouncing off the walls. So hard to concentrate. And a lot of them just simply like don't want to be there. And so it's definitely finding something you're motivated about and then hitting it on that, right? But a lot of kids are just motivated by video games. And so it's hard to give a switch sometimes, right? But I'm able to tell basically all the time how the students I'm with are feeling. Like I can just see when I say a certain type of word or I say something in a certain type of way that they react differently. It's the same with humans too, right? And so you should be able to tell kind of the experience and past someone has had by the way that they react to certain things. And if someone that is close to you is reacting in such a, chaotic, hectic, fucking exploding type of way, it's probably because that's what they saw, that's what they experienced, and this is some type of defense mechanism that they have. You can't hurt me, so I'm just going to explode everything back on you, so you can't hurt me, I hurt you first, or I leave, I run away first, you can't hurt me, or I care so much, maybe. Like, there's so many different types of responses people have, and then they cool off, and then they go back to normal. And so in that moment, literally what's happening is their sympathetic nervous system activated for a little bit. They got into that stress response, that flight or fight or freeze mode. They had that reaction, and then later they cooled off, and they could come back with something with more of a normal parasympathetic response, which is empathetic, and it is, much more softer, and it's nice. And again, when you're in that fight or flight sympathetic response, cortisol and adrenaline are going through your blood system. So it's a physical response too. Certain nerve endings are firing, certain things are happening to your fascia, certain things are happening in your gut. Like, all these things are happening at once. Chemicals in your brain, your HP axis, your GB axis, all these things are happening. So it's a very physical response too, depending on how bad those prior interactions were. I know for me, I would get this entire feeling in my body of wanting to throw up before going to talk to someone. And my body would shake up, or I get super tense just talking to someone, right? Or using a louder voice. And those are things that are going to inhibit you, if they're so bad, from making human connection, which is a pretty important thing in life, right? A pretty important thing in life is human connection. And so if your social anxiety is so bad that you can't make human connection, you can't have human connection, pretty sad life. And so that's what I try to fix with a lot of the people that I work with, not my students entirely, just for them, but with the other people I work with. And you can tell that they're smart people, they're doctors, they're engineers, they're software developers. It doesn't mean that someone who works in a factory is less smart. It just goes to show that no matter the degree you have, the level of education, or what you are, if you make $100 million a year, or $1 a year, or you come from a very nice affluent background, or you come from a very poor background, or you come from a well-received background or family, or you don't, you all go through this process, you all adhere to these rules and principles that go on in life of, if certain things happen to you, you respond in that certain way. And if you can't respond empathetically or compassionately, and you get so heated up, it's probably something wrong with your, not wrong, but inflamed is a better word, with your nervous system. You have hyperactive amygdala response, and so you respond negatively and look at the negative things in life, not on purpose, but as a baseline of your brain and body trying to protect yourself. Because if something is negative in your past, and you got defensive and it helped you, or you ran away and it helped you, well, you're going to be like, okay, anytime I see that negative, let me do that again. And so it's basically just your brain and body trying to protect you from more pain. But it's understanding that those things don't work anymore. And so if you have big responses to something, the outburst is huge, you just need to understand that anytime I'm in a moment of stress and it's not proportional to what is happening, like a conversation, and I'm getting so heated and I'm not coming from compassion, completely giving the best interpretation of everything, that takes that takes a more intelligent type of conversation. It takes a moment to audit yourself always, and then come from a place of compassion, and not every single moment of the day, but when the conversations are needed. Oh my god, my voice is so dry right now. I'm sorry. My water right now. But coming from a place of compassion, and just to do that alone is going to take that higher level of thinking that only humans should be capable of. The higher level of, oh, I'm self-aware right now. I understand what I'm doing. I understand what I'm doing is maybe not completely who I am. Let me see if I can approach this from a different way, get a different result. And it's, having the awareness of a lot of the things that we talked about and a lot more, to be able for you to give yourself the tools and the understanding of what's happening to you in that moment. And then using it to hopefully calm yourself down and then approach the situation better. And again, it goes way deeper. There's a whole bunch of other things like what's happening in the brain, in other situations that are happening. But that's just a very quick rundown of like what is happening in the body and in the mind. And so just from there, you have this pattern of, if I express myself, I'm going to be hit with pain or judgment. And so now later in life, that pattern still is there. If I express myself, people will give me pain. They will judge me. It's not something I am. It became something part of your identity. And so you take actions that are going to align with your identity. And if you don't believe that you're a loud, talkative person, you're not going to be there. And so this is why in certain environments, new environments, if you go in and you're very kind of expressive and people are very well receiving of you, in that environment, you'll probably feel a lot more safe and comfortable and able to be expressive and able to be yourself, because you'll not be in that fight or flight response. You'll have little cortisol. You'll have little adrenaline. You'll be more relaxed. You'll have oxytocin, serotonin, things like that. So all these things are happening in your body, and they're making patterns and responses to give you the highest probability that you survive based on previous experiences. But we are smarter than that. And so we can understand our previous experiences and then use new things and implement those into our life to get better results that are allowing us to express ourselves and be happy. Those are hopefully the results we get. Ability to express ourselves, connect with other people, and be happy. That's hopefully the result. And that's something I had to do with all these people that we had to do, what we had to do, right? Basically lower their fear of judgment, which would lower their anxiety. Your anxiety is that fear of judgment. And so the way that you do that is by being okay expressing yourself and being okay with the rejection or the judgment that you may get afterwards, and not allowing it to affect your self-esteem. And so your confidence is just your ability to do something. You're knowing that you can do something, right? I'm confident that I'll tie my shoes. I'm not so confident in skydiving. I've never done it before. So you're going to be confident in things that you do a lot and that you're good at. If your past experiences with talking to people were them calling you weird or making fun of you or putting you down, you're not going to be open to that again. You're not going to be confident in that again. If your past experiences were positive, that's amazing. And so this is why people with physical deformities, just checking if recording, physical deformities, or maybe if they believe that they're underweight, overweight, they're ugly in some type of way, that's why they're going to be more self-conscious, higher fear of judgment, because they have been pointed out for those negative things in the past. I guarantee you those negative words were attributed with negative sub-communications. It wasn't, oh my God, you're so ugly. It was like, oh my God, you're ugly. You're not invited. Or it was something along those lines. Probably not like that, in that type of harsh way. That's more of a hyperbolic example, but like something along those lines. And so that's the thing that we have to work on, lowering that fear of judgment. And the way that you do that is by practicing in micro steps of expressing yourself and being okay with it. And so expressing yourself more and more, little by little. And so what this means is in a positive way, while switching the RAS. So it's basically CBT, but you switch the RAS by, when you're in the moment and you're getting all those negative thoughts, kind of retraining yourself to think about them in a more positive way, reframing them, And so a very basic example, that person was mean to me. There's something horrible with me. That's what this interaction would lead this person to believe. Versus, okay, maybe there's something not horrible wrong with me, but that person was having, maybe a bad day, and they have lived their entire life up to that point for them to react in that type of way. And if you're colored or you're an immigrant or something like that, you may be like, oh, they're racist, right? And maybe they're racist, right? But even if they are racist, it's like, that's not in your control. And so you shouldn't beat yourself up for that. But a lot of people do beat themselves up for that. And so it's lowering that fear of judgment while building the self-esteem. So the reprogramming of thoughts builds the self-esteem, but they need to be backed up by evidence that your brain needs to see. So the evidence that your brain has seen in the past is me expressing myself as negative. Me having this emotional conversation is going to end negatively. I just can't have it. I've never seen it before. I don't know how to do it. And so it's reprogramming with the thoughts, then taking the actions, then getting the outcome. Once your brain sees all three of those steps and is aware, it then can start to rewire. This then needs to be repeated more and more for it to solidify. And so again, nothing is 1 or 0. It's on a scale and it's on a degree. We're on that scale. And so a very small example like this is being okay starting a conversation with someone. Being okay asking where the washroom is, asking directions. And then, furthermore, would be asking those things and then asking how their day is going. And just by that, enacts a little bit of emotional vulnerability. You're opening yourself up to more rejection. I don't want to tell you that. I don't care about telling you how my day is. Go away. You're opening yourself up to that reaction. And it's a valid reaction, kind of. But if someone were to give you that type of reaction to you asking where the washroom is, you'd be like, okay, maybe there's something wrong with you. That's a very basic question. But now that you're asking how your day is, a bit more personal, they can say no to that. And so that is where that emotional vulnerability is coming from. I'm putting myself out there for an acceptable type of rejection, which would be more personal type of rejection. And then even in a smaller form, it's laughing louder. And so if you hold back your laughs because you feel like expressing happy emotion isn't who you are or is too much for you to handle, well, that's something that you should practice on. You should practice being more expressive in your positivity, in your sadness too. Cry more, express your anger, express all these things. If you have a suppression and a people-pleasing tendency, this is what you need to do. Practice expressing who you are again. And so the most expressive person would be someone who is eye contact is super strong, is flailing all around, is making as much noise as possible. Facial expressions are just whatever they want, blah, whatever. Whatever emotion they're feeling, they immediately express that in the fullest way. So who is that person? A person does that does exist. Very small person. It's a baby. And so when you're a baby, the emotion you feel, the feeling in your body, you immediately just express out into the world. No social anxiety. Over time, things happen. Patterns build in your body and in your mind. Social anxiety. But the social anxiety is a pattern of expressing yourself and having a fear of judgment or rejection or some type of negative outcome from that expression. And so by you practicing, okay, I laughed louder. I felt okay with that. I didn't die. Okay, I can do that again, and now I'm okay with that. And so your brain was literally, before interpreting, I would die if that happened. They would look at me, see I'm a weirdo, see all those insecurities because I'm making myself be seen right now, say that they're true. I would think horrible about myself because they found that out, cut me off, throw me out of our caveman tribe, and I would die in the savannah. So that's where your brain is kind of happening right there. And then also in that parent to child dynamic, my parent will love me, they'll not take care of me anymore, I will get kicked away, and I will die. So it's a life or death situation in some cases. No, it is a life or death situation cases when people interpret it that way. Through those micro expressions, little by little, asking more about a person, maybe going deeper into a conversation, expressing yourself a bit more, You get more and more comfortable with that. And you're able to then express yourself in a more fun and playful way, in a way where you don't overthink your jokes that you want to say. And you know the jokes that you want to say because you have some opinions and you know who you are and you know what you like and you know what you don't like. In your past experiences, if you didn't really, if what, things that you liked or things that you wanted to do or things that you had in your mind's opinions weren't ever talked about or were put down, well, you're not going to have your own because you're like, oh, there's no use in this. Oh, there's no use in having that. There's no use in having it, yet communicating it. And so you may have not many thoughts, not many beliefs, not many opinions, not many interests because you weren't focusing on that. You weren't interested in that, right? So it's building up all those things is how and is the only way to cure your social anxiety, to lower your fear of judgment, to be able to express yourself, because that is what's holding you back. You want to be able to be the person you want to be, but you're held back by this thing that we call social anxiety, which now we have defined fear of judgment, negative outcomes, which comes from this, patterns, body responses, all this stuff, subcommunications, like all these things are happening. And so we just need to rewire them. And this is something that in therapy is not talked about. A lot of the people, I'm going to see if I'm recording still, it's a long video. A lot of the people that I've worked with, most of the people I've worked with, have gone to therapy before for social anxiety, but also other things like just mental health and things. When they come to me, when they talk to me, it's different. I understand where they're coming from. I lay it out like this because I know that they have to be aware too to get over it. Why? I've been through the same thing. So I know that they need to have all the tools of understanding why it's happening to them and what to do to fix it. And you have to go out into the world and put yourself in those situations in which you would usually clam up, and you need to start being okay with that. But it's a little by little, understanding what to do, understanding what you're looking for, having some accountability to actually go and do it, and then doing it, and then doing it again and again and again, and getting more better at it. That's literally it. But like, they've all gone to therapy. A lot of them have. And it just doesn't help. It doesn't work because you can't talk your way into a different identity in which you need to get over the social anxiety. You need to get back to the identity you had when you were a child and you were free. And so, okay, I got a question asked by one of my clients, very deep question. Why, if you weren't good looking as I am, amazingly handsome, if you weren't immensely jacked at, just like I am, smart, good at every sport, whatever, right? If you didn't have any of those attributes, if you didn't have anything in your life that you were good at, why would you still love yourself? Would you still love yourself? And this is a question I've thought about a lot. And the answer is yes, I still would love myself. Because I would love myself the same way I loved my kid, the same way I loved my mother, the same way I loved anybody else who was very close to me. I don't really care about anything that you have. I just love you, right? And that's the same way you have to treat yourself. But a lot of people don't treat themselves that way. And so they will hold themselves back, right? And so that's the answer, right? I would treat them the same way I would treat my kid, my mom, my sister, my brother, my family members, my close friend. Like, I will just love you for you. And that type of love you have in yourself then takes away that I can't say that because I'm not good enough. I can't say that because I'm not this person. I can't do that because I'm not this or that. And that's how you build that self-esteem. You have that self-love for yourself. And these are all things that, again, aren't 1 or 0. You're on a scale, and you slowly move throughout that scale by being okay with your biggest insecurities, by learning how to talk to people, by being okay being judged, by knowing you got yourself, by knowing there's close people in your life that you can truly rely on, by having deep emotional connections, by looking people in their eye, holding them closely, and being okay sharing like truly honest, deep things about yourself. That makes you safe. That makes you feel comfortable. That relaxes your nervous system at a baseline. But if you don't have that, conversations with your parents were angry and hostile, your baseline nervous system can be all hectic and stuff. And that comes out throughout your entire life. All right, long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more help, book call in the description. I do hope it helps you. Help myself, helped a lot of the people I work with. And this is something that is going to affect you for the rest of your life with everybody that you meet and with yourself. So yeah, love you. Goodbye. Peace out.